How's it going, everyone? My name is Dan, but you can call me Malone, and today we're talking to entrepreneur and adventurer Shane Monks O'Byrne. Shane talks about how he traveled across Europe in a converted camper van while also building a multi-million-dollar business, Aikido Finance. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Cheers.
Cool. Shane, thanks very much for joining me. How's things?
My pleasure, Dan. Things are very, very, very good. Why? Thank you for asking. How are things with you?
All good, man. I love your setup. Where are you at the moment?
So this is my camper van, which I live in full time. So I'm currently in Chamonix in France. Been trying to get here for like 4 years. It has been very much a dream that has been continuously postponed, but I am finally here. So pursuing the mountains, lots of mountaineering and climbing, and running the startup while I do it. Trying to juggle lots of different things.
Cool. So do you do a lot of traveling in the van itself? Is that like, did you buy that or did you do it up yourself or what's up?
Yeah, so I mean, I built this like 3 years ago from scratch. Travel a lot, have lived in it now full time for like 2 years. Last year I hit 20 countries in total, did an absolute whopper amount of mileage, learned some new languages, met some cool people. But I have grown kind of weary of this persistent moving about. So I'm very, very happily situated in a campsite now in Chamonix, where it gets a little bit cold at night, but you know, you definitely get the payoff with all the views. It's just absolutely spectacular, the views I have when I just look out my window right then there.
What made you want to do, I suppose, that extent of traveling amidst the global pandemic? Were you not thinking like, oh, this is actually a bad time to travel, or did you see it as the best opportunity to do it?
So at the very start of the pandemic, I was definitely like a little bit spooked. But then I was like, screw it, let's just
Yeah.
go for it. Because the problem is, especially in Ireland, the amount of fear mongering was like astronomical. It was really through the roof, and it was actually completely false. Like, I managed to travel completely through Europe, 20 countries, with zero problem last year. All I had to do was have my vaccine, and with that QR code, you could go absolutely everywhere. But unfortunately, people didn't know that. Everybody was thinking, oh, you won't be able to travel, you won't be able to cross these borders, but it was completely fine. Like, there was a few times when it was, you know, a little bit of a queue crossing the border, but there was never any issues. So no, for me, there was no problem. In fact, I worked in a few co-works last year, which is like basically office spaces that you share with other people and work with. And I lived in a few co-livings as well. So I lived in that's where you live and work with people, and the aim for me is to meet cool, interesting people who I can adventure with, and also who have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit as well. So I was living in in Lofoten, which is up in the Arctic Circle in Norway, and co-living there, and then also one down in Palma in Spain as well. So completely like polar opposite. But no, I definitely wasn't put off by the pandemic. And I mean, I've been planning to live in this thing for so long that I just couldn't put it off any longer.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked in big tech before I started my own thing, and I mean, going into that job, my idea was, okay, I'm going to work hard, learn lots, earn dosh, build a camper van, leave the job, move in the camper van, and
Yeah.
and start my own company. And it's played out that way. All for the best.
Great. And in terms of the actual van itself, like, was it a challenge putting that together? Did you have experience doing that, or was it just completely new to you?
No, so completely no experience going into it, much to the skepticism of my dad, who didn't believe in me at all. But I mean, now I've built this thing, and it's absolutely stunning, and everybody who steps into it is just like stepping into a log cabin, which is exactly how I designed it. I mean, I have my skis literally right here hanging up. So I mean, I've got 4 solar panels on the roof. I've got, you know, running water and electricity, a bunch of plug sockets. I've got gas, heater, got a shower, got literally everything in there. And really, you know, we just live in the most amazing time imaginable, because you can just learn all these things completely yourself online
Yeah.
for free. And people are realizing this, and you know, now people are even like wondering, will I bother going to university, because I can just like learn all this stuff myself and take a completely abstract route. And so I actually filmed the entire process. I just knew I was going to do something, as Gary Vaynerchuk talks about. Like, I'm not a huge fan of him, but you know, document everything,
Mm.
and for good reason. So I ended up partnering with Udemy, brought out a 55-part video series, which is now the most popular van conversion course on the internet. So
Wow.
you type in how to convert a camper van, and it's just up there at the top, and it's got like a bunch of students, completely taken off. And And it was like filming this, and then I had to teach it, and I sit down and I go through the course, and you learn this stuff inside out. And it was just mad seeing this journey from like no experience to like, I can now safely say that I have a hell of a lot of experience, and I've got a bunch of my buddies now doing the same thing. A friend of mine just bought a jumbo transit. He's doing it up at the moment. A friend of mine, shortly after I built mine, built one and moved to Brussels. Another friend of mine, very similar to me, he works in like algo trading as a software developer, and he's also now living in his van over in the Rockies. So it's it's a different path. And when else in the history of
Yeah.
ever could you be working remotely from a camper van from beautiful locations? You know, it's a cool time to be alive.
It's crazy. It's just like this unprecedented level of freedom that we all have to do whatever we want, wherever we want, you know? You mentioned that before you started doing your own thing, which we'll talk about in a second, you were working in big tech. Do you want to just give us a bit of an idea on your kind of more formal background before you started going out on your own?
Yeah, so I have a background in computer science. I feel very lucky to have that. I mean, like, properly unbelievable luck that I just so happened to fall into that course, and there's nothing else I would have rather have done. So I left college, and I knew I'd been very big into climbing and mountaineering and alpinism and these kind of things, and so I kind of knew that this was the direction I wanted to go. But I was hesitant to jump into that route straight away after college. I knew that I probably should get a bit of experience and also earn some money. So I ended up falling into a job at Workday, which is a really big fintech, big tech company in Ireland. And that was just an absolute dream to work there. So that place is like, I always call it like a beanbag millennial company. All the table tennis tables, the Xboxes, the PlayStations, the food program, and like a really nice salary straight for a graduate out of college.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky to go into that. And I was also lucky to work on accounting software there, which obviously has set me nicely up for what I'm doing now. But I learned a lot there. I was there for a year and a half. The initial plan was 6 months. And then after 6 months, I was like, that would be a really bad idea to leave. I'm actually going to stay in this wonderful, wonderful place. While I was there, I built a mobile application called Investing Checklists, which took off. It got about 10,000 downloads, but I took it down there a few months ago. But that was all sort of the quantitative, sort of my introduction into quantitative investing there with that application. Funnily enough, one of the directors at Workday is now an investor with Aikido. So it's all been very very good to me, and a lot of my team now comes from Workday as well.
Wow.
And I mean, how I've picked the team is really just picked the smartest and best people who I know and I'm already friends with, and you just build a superstar team. And I mean, that's the I suppose that's the tech startup way. Just people you trust and know are amazing, and a lot of them would have been from Workday.
It sounds like a very natural progression. Like you really kind of made the most of your experience and brought it to where you are now. So obviously you mentioned you are the CEO and co-founder of Aikido Finance. I suppose just give us a general overview of what Aikido is and why you started it.
I was working freelance. Connor, my co-founder, he was still in Workday. I was working freelance as a project manager and as a lead developer for a few startups. And the aim is I knew I wanted to start my own company, but I wanted to get some experience in the startup realm first. But while I was doing that work, I got really heavily into this world of quantitative investing or algorithmic trading. But algorithmic trading almost leaves a bad taste in your mouth because it seems like it's very high frequency, and that's not what I'm all about. I've done every single form of investing under the sun, starting at the age of 17, from FX trading to getting burned, and quickly upskilling myself by grabbing every single book I possibly could on the world of value investing, and then becoming a very deep fundamental investor. Which would take a really long time, of course, as you know. You're spending a lot of time going through financial statements, doing your due diligence, and it's ripe with biases left, right, and center that you have to be really conscious of. Sunk cost fallacy, for one. You spend hours researching a company, and then all of a sudden you realize, I probably shouldn't buy this, but I've just spent all this time researching it. So it can be a bit of a killer, but it was very enjoyable as well. But I came across a few very, very interesting books a few years ago. And one of those books was What Works on Wall Street by James O'Shaughnessy, which I probably have talked to you about before. And that book to me is like the Bible of investing. It's like absolute required reading for any serious investor. And O'Shaughnessy in this book outlines very simple strategies, backtests them in some cases to 1926, most cases at 1964, and sees how looks at how they've performed historically. And these are strategies that basically anybody can replicate. And you're looking at amazing returns on average. You're looking at like 16, 17, 18% upwards annual return, whereas the S&P 500 has, you know, a 10% return or so. So big difference there. And so I was very skeptical. So I managed to corral Connor into building a backtester with me. So we called the project Doubting Thomas, sort of not trusting the returns there that we were reading about. We built this thing from scratch, very much patched together. It wasn't a superb backtester by any means compared to what we're using now, but we started to see these results ourselves. And that's the nice thing about being a developer there. We could both, you know, work really hard on this. We were really passionate about it. So fast forward a little bit, I saw Y Combinator was giving a bit of a talk in Dogpatch Labs in Dublin. And so I said to Connor, hey, let's hop over to this and have a look. I really knew at this stage that I wanted to sort of work for myself. And it was absolutely super talk there by two Irish Y Combinator grads. Y Combinator, for those who don't know, is the largest startup accelerator in the world. Airbnb and other folks have gone through there. So we got super stoked after that talk, left, went into the Eddie Rockets across the road, sat down, and for the next 6 hours fleshed out the entire business plan for Aikido, right? And what we realized, right, is basically, you know, building this backtester, we saw the lack of information out there on this form of investing, which is a rules-based, systematic, structured approach to picking stocks, essentially using a computer to pick stocks for you and taking, you know, no of your own qualitative judgment into account, literally whatsoever. You use a set rebalance period every month, and it just automatically rebalances your portfolio, and everything is automated. And you're using a strategy that you know has worked historically over the past 20 or 40 or more years. And that, for my developer brain, really like ticked. Something just flicked in my brain. It's like, wow, this is the way, not only for the returns, which I almost care less about than the stress and effort that I was putting into individual stock picking. For me, this just made sense. It was just like this relief. It's like, wow, I don't have to worry about anything anymore, which was really nice and not what people think of stress-free when they hear algorithmic trading.
Yeah, for sure.
But so what we wanted to do was bring out a tool for anybody to get access to these quantitative strategies, right? Who didn't necessarily need a doorstop of a book that is pretty tough to get through and didn't have any coding experience, so they would have to go into MetaTrader 5 or into Quant Connect or something like that, or who didn't even have a whale of a lot of financial knowledge, which is broadly speaking needed for, you know, a lot of these quant things, or who didn't have a lot of capital, because to get into quant hedge funds you need like $500,000 capital at least. A lot of these require multi-million dollars. It's for high net worth individuals to get access to these. We wanted to bring this to everybody. So we wanted to give everybody access to these strategies that the elite hedge funds normally use. And so with that, Aikido was born, and this whole idea of bringing a SaaS platform, B2C, subscription based, super cheap, with awesome strategies on there. And fast forward now, just over a year and a half onwards, and we're in a really exciting place. We've expanded now beyond stock strategies and with automated portfolio creation, rebalancing, to now having crypto, which drops. By the way, you're getting first insight today. I'm putting out the announcement later on, which I'm really excited for. It's going to be a big day today.
Nice.
So we got some auto crypto in there, and basically what you do with Aikido is you just hook up your broker or your exchange, choose a strategy, and then the trades are sent automatically to your broker.
Brilliant. And I think for someone listening to that, like, you know, I know from talking to a lot of people, when they get started investing, there's just this like massive information and they don't know what's important and unimportant. Do you believe that quantitative investing has a place for the absolute beginners, and like it's totally accessible for someone to go straight into quantitative investing, or do they have to do a bit of research before they go down that path?
Yeah, with the right tool, it's definitely possible. I will say, like, our target is normally like people with a little bit of experience, but to be honest, I mean, you literally choose a strategy, you create a portfolio, and you're away. You don't actually have to technically know anything for in this new age of algo trading like we're doing, right? In the previous age, it completely impenetrable, like zero chance, right? But yeah, for sure. And I mean, look, there's layers here to quant as well. Like at the most basic level, a quant is somebody who just uses a stock screener, perhaps like like Finviz, or even like the one we have on Aikido. You literally put it, you find from a book some strategy that you want to use, and you input those parameters into a screener, and you get a list of stocks. You rank that list, and then you just pick the top 15 or the top 30 or the top 50 off the top of that list, and that's your portfolio. Or if you want to be slightly less hardcore and you can put a little bit of research, that can be your base. That screen is like, okay, I know these are deep value, and I know that there's high momentum on these stocks. I'm now going to go through and do some qualitative analysis on these stocks. And that's an excellent way to be, as they call, a quantamental investor. Now I'm very hardcore, and I know for a fact that quantamental like does deteriorate from returns. Generally, the more you do, the worse your returns get. Unfortunately, that's the way. But it's a nice way to merge it. And then of course there's the no code tools like ours, and then up from that, of course, there is then full code, which is a lot of fun. Really, really hard, but a lot of fun, and you learn a ridiculous amount if you're in there coding the stuff yourself.
No, it's great, because it just, to me, it feels like you're democratizing this aspect of investing that otherwise wouldn't be available to the average person, which is fantastic. I think from my perspective as well, one of the best things about quant investing is it completely detaches emotion from the investment decision. I'd love to get your perspective on the current investment landscape, like what your own thoughts and opinions are, and like, does quant investing just allow you to detach from what's going on in the short term, or do you still keep up to date regularly about what's going on?
So I think there's one thing that's undeniable, which is that the landscape's completely bonkers. So we can get that out of the way immediately. The fact that Facebook can move by 20% in a single day, I think, is sign enough of the times that we're in.
Yep.
It is absolutely crazy that that one of the, like, I don't know what the market cap is, but presumably top 10 largest companies in the world can move by that much in a single day. That volatility shows the stage we're at the market cycle. So aside from that, then, does quant investing help you become a long-term investor? 100%, because you are using a system that is a long-term system. You're looking back over 20 years, and you need to know this going into this field, that like an investor is somebody who invests for longer than 10 years. And to me, a gambler is anybody who invests less than 10 years. And perhaps that's a little bit harsh to say anybody who invests for less than 10 years is a gambler, but like, to have any sort of certainty, you need that time frame. And that's also the time frame you want from a quant strategy, to know you're going to get that full performance. Like, we look at base rates, how often it outperforms the index, right? And we look at rolling 10-year periods. So in a rolling, so 2000 to 2010, 2001 to 2011, we look at all these rolling periods going back, and we know that all the strategies that we have like outperform on a 10-year period almost all the time. Like, you're almost at 100% hit rate there. You're certainly above 90%. So you need that kind of outlook to be a quant. But any good, any fundamental investor also of course, has that same outlook. I think what's nice though about quant versus the normal side of things is that it does take away the emotional side, like you were saying there, from the basically panic selling isn't an option, and that for me is the best part of it. The closest thing that you have to a panic sell is a stop loss when you're a quant. So you might put, like, for example, 20% stop loss in all your positions. And that's like an automated panic sell. So what that means is it just automatically sells out of a position when it drops by 20%, and it really reduces your drawdown, your max drawdown there. But there is no option to go in, and when you see a stock like Facebook drop 15%, if it's in your portfolio, it's in your strategy, you ain't touching that, dude. That is staying right there if the strategy says it's staying there.
Yeah. I know you mentioned as well, like the introduction of cryptocurrency strategies. Like, do you believe in the fundamentals of crypto investing then? Would you put that on par with investing in, cash generating stocks? Do you still think you can be a long-term investor in crypto?
So I heard your conversation with Dara yesterday, and I heard you say it. I was like, has he heard me say that before? Because you said exactly my words, which is that I don't personally own crypto, but I believe in the underlying technology, which word for word is what you said when you talked to Dara. And I believe that, I absolutely believe Bitcoin's long-term potential of that, potentially Ethereum there as well, but there is a whole load of crap in that space. So There are long-term ways to invest in crypto, though, and of course we have it on the platform. And I definitely believe in the technology. I think it's awesome, and for me, it is inevitable, like down the line. But as you put it, why I personally don't in my own portfolio is that I can't put a value on what that coin is worth. So I can say to a decimal point why I'm buying every single stock in my portfolio, but I can't say why I'm buying a certain crypto. So for that reason, as they would say on Dragon's Den, I'm out. But I do believe that there's, long term, and it's like inevitable for me. So the way one might invest in crypto for long term is through a DCA. So dollar cost averaging, right? So that's actually what we've launched today, is an automated DCA app. So you hook in with Kraken, Binance, Coinbase, KuCoin, or FTX, and you choose your coin, choose your frequency, choose your amount, and you set up the DCA. And it's just going to do that like every week, invest $100 into Bitcoin or whatever it is. That, for me, is one of the very few ways to invest in cryptos long term, because of course the benefit there is you're going to reduce market volatility. You're buying less, I suppose, coins when it's very overpriced, or more coins when it's very underpriced, same way that you would do a DCA in stocks. So that's a great way to do it. Of course, there's the usual way, which is diversification is the only free lunch in investing. In cryptos, it's almost slightly less true. But of course, you're going to experience a lot less volatility if you own a few coins, and potentially you might look at, there are actually categories, we call them, in cryptos. So it could be, DeFi, it could be metaverse. There are types of coins. And if you have coins from different categories, think of them like factors or industries even, you get a certain level of diversification there too.
So I suppose, Shane, one of the things I love about your perspective on investing, especially what you post on LinkedIn, is the parallels you draw between extreme sports and investing, specifically mountaineering. I think it's such a unique perspective. Maybe talk to me a little bit about what you see as the main parallels between extreme sports and investing, particularly quant investing.
Yeah, I'm mad into parallels. And people have different words for this. I call them parallels. Some people call them maxims. Some people, call them life rules, whatever you want. But these are, I have a lot of different interests in my life. And I like to learn things from one area of my life and apply it to another area. And there's lots of places that I can put that, but investing is so applicable. And it's pretty mad, like how applicable investing is to all areas of your life and to different areas. More so, I would say, than any of my other hobbies. Like I would have learned more from investing about life than I have from all my time in the mountains, or from building this van, or from like all the other things that I do, which is, it's very interesting. So, for example, risk in investing can be applied to just about everything. The simple maxim of no risk, no reward. Well, same thing in the mountains, right? If you don't go out there and take some risk going up, some mountain, well, you're not going to reap the benefit of the view from the top. So, but everybody has a tolerance there, of course, as well. And knowing your risk tolerance in investing is, of course, knowing how likely am I to sell, to panic sell. That's basically your risk. Volatility to me isn't risk. Risk is how likely you are to sell. But in the mountains, you've got to know what your skill level is and what you can do. So, I mean, just Sunday gone by, I had an awesome day out on the mountaineering skis, which are skis that can go uphill. So we did like 3 calls, we summited an agile, and from the top of this agile, we skied down a couloir, which is like a super, super narrow little gully. To some people, perhaps like hardcore, but I'm decent. So like it was well within my risk tolerance. But there are certain things that I wouldn't do. But then, of course, as Buffett always talks about, knowing your margin of safety is really important as well. So when Buffett is choosing a company, he's going to put his intrinsic valuation on the company. He does all his stuff, runs his formulas, and then comes out with a value of this company. And then he says, okay, I'm not going to trust myself. I'm going to discount that even further. So he'll do 20% below that normally of what he values the company at, and he'll only buy that company if it's below that. So knowing this, like giving yourself this margin of safety in the mountains is really important. Don't push yourself to 100%. Let's in fact bring it probably even below 80%. Never go like full ham or you're in for a bad time. Exit strategy, another parallel. And there's infinite of these that you could draw, but exit strategy is when are you going to exit from this? What's your exit plan if you do need to exit this investment? It could be the stop loss, this automated panic sell if it drops below 20%. Okay, I'm in the mountains. What's my exit strategy? I want to know if things go south, if a whiteout hits, like, where am I getting off this mountain? What's my fastest route out? Do I have the equipment? So those are just a few of the parallels that I have, from investing. Yeah, there's certainly a plethora of them.
And just from your own experience mountaineering and things like that, like, do those dangerous situations present themselves often? Is that something that happens on a regular basis? Because I have no experience mountaineering, so I just don't know the extent of risk involved and how often those risks actually come to light.
So it's how often they come around is completely related to how much risk you take. The more risk you take, the more likely you are to have that. So avalanche, of course, is the one that everybody's aware of, and the more risk you take on, the more likely you are to go into an avalanche territory, right? Which is stupid. Nobody should be going into very high risk avalanche territory anyway. So that's just like highly risky. But then it is likely to occur if you do that. The other thing is weather is a really big one. And I mean, I've had plenty of adventures where things have gone south. One of them, I was doing a traverse in Canada a few years ago called the Neve Traverse. And what was supposed to be a very long day turned into a very, very long day. I was out ski touring for 24 hours straight, but got caught in a whiteout on a glacier, and I was only navigating by map and compass at the time. I kind of refused to use a GPS, and I've very much gone back on my ways now and use a GPS all the time. Totally important. But the declination in Canada at the time was 16 degrees, and that's the difference between magnetic north and true north. So because magnetic north changes all the time throughout the year. And in fact, every several 100,000 years, the poles switch on the earth completely. So south becomes north and north becomes south, which is bizarre. But I ended up going the wrong way down this glacier for hours and hours and hours. Got caught in a whiteout. It went way less than expected. And I learned a lot of lessons. I didn't bring a stove to melt water. I didn't use a GPS and a bunch of other things that, some things you need mistakes to learn from, or at least, try learn from others.
That's super interesting. I think for anyone listening to this, like, they have this idea, maybe based on movies, of the traditional kind of CEO sitting in an office, slaving away, building the business. And it's just insane to me how you're effectively building this company from a mountain, more or less a lot of the time. What has been some of the learning points that you've had of actually building and running a company in these spots?
So I had a really interesting experience. I mean, I fundraised, raised our Aikido's pre-seed, raised $1 million, which was cool. We got 14 investors on board, and I did the entire thing from this wagon. So certainly I learned a lot about fundraising, a huge amount, and fundraising on the road. And fundraising on the road taught me very much about fundraising. And fundraising is just sales, ultimately, right? And the biggest thing is to be light and be playful and be charismatic and make them like you. And the fact that I was in the camper van and we'd start the meeting and I just say, hey, check this out, I'm on this beach. You get them off laughing, right? And that was great because you're off on a good foot automatically, And I had a pretty good time fundraising. We're in a sexy area, like fintech is and algo trading are obviously pretty nice areas to be in. But yeah, it definitely started those conversations off on the right foot, which was really good. So certainly when you're in sales, like stay light, stay playful, make them laugh. As far as like running the team, nomadically, is completely, different situation. We're still very small. Like we're trying to expand only quite slowly. I'm trying to keep the team lean and mean, but everybody is completely nomadic and remote. So we have people all around the world, all around Europe at least. So we've got Italy and Spain and London and Ireland, and I'm here in France. So really everybody's all around the place, and everybody has this same kind of mindset. Ultimately we don't pay ourselves a whole load because we're still a startup and we're still hustling really hard.
For sure.
So what we don't pay ourselves, we give ourselves in lifestyle. And this, being able to work from wherever you like with a really amazing team is such a wonderful gift. And I think I suppose having everybody in that same mindset, that the team has this really great culture, right? And it means that anybody coming in, we know the culture that's in Aikido there already, and it's very much like we're not looking for suits in an office. Like that is the antithesis of what we're looking for. And, you know, like we're not looking for a Wall Street kind of guy, you know, the classic way at least. So it's certainly developed a culture living on the road, and it's only like flourished even more as we've got to know what that culture is.
And do you think that a priority for you as CEO will be to maintain that culture as you grow even larger, like throughout the entire time? This is the culture of Aikido and we want to keep it like this.
100%. Culture is everything. You can't lose. The problem with you know, when you get into big tech size, and big techs really try to keep onto their culture. So in Workday really tried to keep the culture, and how Workday hired, really, they were so focused on the people rather than on the coding. Of course, you needed to be a smart cookie, but they really put so much emphasis on how good a team fit you are and how fun you are, to be honest. And so it does, you even do get at the large tech side, but it's harder to maintain that culture. When you're small, you can be so, and you only want to hire people who are amazing. Like I only want to hire people who are smarter than me. So, and I've managed to do that so far. The team's ridiculous. Like they're all smarter than me. So, you know, I think it's probably the main job of the CEO. I mean, my job is to raise money when we need money, to run the team and make sure we only hire the best people, and to make sure that our North Star is aligned and that we're always working towards our goal of getting quantitative investing, algo trading to everyone, because nobody has access up to now. And I mean, those are really the three main things. You know, everything after that, in the early days, of course, you know, as a small startup like we are, you know, I'm chief marketer. So I do all the marketing stuff there as well, of course. We actually have a marketing position open at the moment. So that's part of the startup CEO. And then, you know, startup CEO also, I love project management. So I'm also managing the team. But as you grow, those things die away very much. And you just become you're very much the guide of the culture and the direction.
One thing we haven't talked about is the name, actually. So Aikido, where does it come from?
Yeah. God, I'm glad we chose that name. It's such a good name.
It's great.
So there's actually a few reasons, but I suppose the biggest reason for me personally, I'm very, very big into Taoism, which is a very, very ancient Asian philosophy, Buddhism. It's like 2,500 years old. But the last character of Aikido, there's 3 characters, and the last character means Do, or that, like Tao. And Tao means the way or the path. And so, you know, I'm just very big into Buddhism in general and meditation, all this. So for me, and Aikido is very much in line with Taoism as well. So for me, it was like that's that personal side. But I always thought of that last character, Tao, like the way or the path in terms of investing, is like sort of the way to financial independence, the way to invest. I mean, like once I've learned all these other ways of investing, this just to me just seems obvious that I would choose this path. There's other reasons though as well. Aikido, the actual martial art, it's a Japanese martial art all about disarming your opponent, but it's all about using their momentum against them. So they come at you with, say, a knife or something, and you gotta use their momentum to sort of disarm them, right? Momentum, of course, is a very big factor in investing. It's one of the arguably one of the 5 factors that contribute largely to returns. It's just the movement of stock price going up. It's the psychological factor. Yeah, those would be sort of the big reasons. And I mean, lastly, it's very flowy, very calm, very relaxed martial art. And I also think of that way with, you know, what we do. There's no sudden movements. There's no jerky about. It's all very calm, very calculated.
It's great to have a name that's just totally embedded in what you're doing and what your company believes in. Last 2 questions. First question is, what has been your number one lesson from being an entrepreneur that you could share with someone who maybe isn't an entrepreneur? Something that it's applicable to the average person on the street. Yeah.
So something you said to me a second ago was like, you know, it's mad that you know, somebody thinks of the classic startup CEO and they're at a desk working really, really hard, and probably very stressed out, putting their ambition perhaps ahead of their happiness and their peacefulness, working to save the world, constantly hustling, working on a million projects. And then when there's even the slightest bit of a gap, they'll add something into their calendar that they can't even fit, overscheduling their calendar constantly, taking too many meetings, just so much things happening all the time. And I do all the things. I do many, many things. My days are very long, but the single biggest thing that has contributed to like my level of contentment is my meditation practice. Every single morning, every single night for the past decade, pretty much like all the time. There's been some on and off periods. Has allowed me to do what I'm doing right now and feel really like peaceful doing it. I really can't like overstate how important it has been to me. I know Ray Dalio, of course, he runs Bridgewater. He's also big now. He's big into TM, transcendental meditation, which you have to be careful how far down the rabbit hole you go on that. But ultimately, I think a lot of people are, chase happiness or chase busyness or these things that think they'll make them happy, but really that's not the goal. The goal is actually peace. As Naval Ravikant talks about, happiness is peace in motion, and peace is happiness at rest. And peace needs to be the goal. Because once you can sit in a room on your own for 10 minutes and be content, that's when you know that you have a stable foundation to build on. And you can actually start doing things and adding. But initially you have to subtract away, take away all these things, be able to sit on your own. And when you can do that comfortably, then you know that you have a foundation, as I said, that you can build on. And for the entrepreneur, that's vital because it's a very romantic idea, just like living in a camper van. And both of those things are very similar, by the way. This romantic idea of living a camper van can be incredibly stressful. And a startup, I don't even have to say how stressful that can be. And so a lot of people think they want that, but very few people are actually cut out for that. More people should maybe just start a little side hustle, should maybe just do a little bit of passive income, maybe like a course or something, right? Could be a good thing. And that's what most people should do if they want to work for their own. Few people should fundraise and go and do it. But if you are going to do that, make sure that you know yourself, that you are solid, that you are really peaceful, and that you really are content in yourself. And at that stage, when you reach that, go to your startup. Because if you start your startup, this is a 7-year game you're playing, right? Yeah. 7 years to exit. That's the time frame you have in your mind. Can you do this for 7 years? Constant, hustling, busyness. So those are the questions. So bit of a roundabout answer, but I feel very strongly about it.
So my last question, Shane, is what does 2022 have in store for you as an individual and also Aikido?
So I'm very happily staying in Chamonix now all this year, which I'm really excited for. It's staying in the camper van, of course, but staying here permanently. I'm ticking away. My long-term goal is to become one of them is to become a mountain guide. Mountain guide takes about 10 years to become a guide. This is a full alpine guide, so climbing, touring, and alpinism. So at the moment, I'm really ticking off a lot of summits in my logbook. I need to do 39 of them, wow. Big boys, to even get into the aspirant program. Chamonix, of course, is the mecca of mountaineering. If you're interested in this is the place to be. So that's on the mountaineering side. I've got a buddy coming over later in the season. We're going to get into paragliding together because this paragliding is huge here. You just see people jumping off the top. So I want to buy a wing for myself and getting into paragliding. I think it's a super place to do it. So a lot of sports and adventure, but I'm really trying not to put too much pressure on myself this year. And everybody is, if you're in any way motivated or entrepreneurial, like both of us, you constantly just add too much to your calendar, right? I mean, I was over Christmas and I had a lovely time off. I had 3 weeks off over Christmas, which is inconceivable. It had been a whole year since I'd had a holiday, right?
Yeah.
But over Christmas, I was super peaceful, chilling out, and then all of a sudden I decided to make a new website. One of many websites that I have, and I built the whole thing, and then I published it. And I was like, why did I do that? I don't even know why I did that. I don't want to add anything more. I've got my Aikido. I do a lot of writing, so I've actually just started a new YouTube channel, which I'm just really doing just for myself. A lot of philosophy and maybe book summaries and stuff like that, completely aside from Aikido. And the nice thing about YouTube is, which I love, especially on the philosophy side, is that you get every aspect of creativity in there. You get to write, and I absolutely adore writing, and especially creative writing. And I'm trying to be really creative and very creative with the writing. So you get to do that, and then you get to record your voice. I enjoy speaking, and then you get to edit it on video. So it's a lot of fun. So mostly small projects, not trying to put too much pressure on myself, and kill it with Aikido. And on Aikido, this is a really exciting year, expanding out the team a lot. And next steps for us, the big thing this year is custom strategy. So we're at the moment we have pre-built strategies on the site. We've 16 of them that anybody can go into, choose a strategy, create a portfolio. But we're actually going to be allowing people through no code, nice user interface, beautiful user interface, build their own algo trading strategy, back test it, get all the stats, and then live trade if they want to do that. And we've got like some big releases. We're going out on AppSumo next Wednesday.
Nice.
AppSumo are huge SaaS platform, so we're going to get access to like 4 million users there. And then I think we're going to do Product Hunt the following month. So keeping up the momentum.
Exciting times. And if people want to try out Aikido for themselves, where can they find it? Where can they stay up to date with you guys?
Yeah, so I mean, the website is aikido.finance. Bit of a weird ending. It's just .finance. There's nothing else. And yeah, for you guys, there's a code which is have 1 month on us, camel case. So the first letter of each word is uppercase. Have 1 month on us. Get you free Aikido. But most of the platform's free anyway. To be honest, just go and check it out. Like you can, there's not like a whole lot that we monetize. So
cool, sweet. Shane, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Dan. Appreciate it, man.